introduce to you the panel that we've put together today on measurement for the whole child. And we really recognize that whole child measurement encompasses a lot of different areas, including social emotional learning, school culture, climate, attendance, and many other features that our speakers are going to talk about today. So we're going to kind of go from the biggest picture down to the school level. So we have Tom Hanson here, who's going to talk about statewide structures around measurement. Dave Calhoun from the core districts, who will speak next about district level measurement and consortium level measurement. And then Salomeh Ghorban, who will talk about school level measurement to support improvement. So each one is going to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their work, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. So again, hold up those index cards and we'll address your questions right after they speak. So Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Hanson from Wested. Thank you. I'm very excited to talk about the California Healthy Kids Survey system. I think this survey has been being administered for 20 years now, and I think probably most of the people in this room sort of know, it's the CHKS, it's a survey, but they know about it, but they don't know, or we rarely get an opportunity to sort of describe how the whole state system is designed and how it works. So thank you everybody for bringing me here to talk about that. The Cal Schools system. Cal Schools stands for the California School Climate, Health, and Learning Survey System. This is the California Departments of Education's measurement system for whole child and school climate. The system is designed to efficiently and cost-effectively provide school districts and communities with local data that assesses academic performance and social, emotional, psychological, and behavioral well-being for all youth. The survey is comprised, the Cal Schools system is comprised of 3 surveys. There's a student survey, that is the California Healthy Kids Survey. There's an elementary version and a secondary version. Then there's the California School Staff Survey, and then there is the California School Parent Survey. The 3 surveys, they have parallel items on them, so that the the views of sort of parents, students, and staff can be compared across the surveys to get a more comprehensive picture of stakeholder perceptions, as well as pointing out sort of differences in perceptions across the stakeholders. The system is both standardized and flexible. It's standardized in that there's a sort of a common set of items that all participants in the system answer, but it's designed to be flexible in terms of it includes different modules, and districts can put their own questions on the survey. Okay, so how it works, let's just give an example of this. So there's a core module, and the core module is a required module, and the core is spelled capital C, small o, small r, and small e. So just so we're clear about that. And so that includes a broad array of measures, measuring school climate and safety, school supports, risk behavior, bullying, substance use, and then a bunch of items to assess subgroup differences. The supplementary modules contain more questions to delve into different areas in more depth. So example modules are the school climate module, the social and emotional health module, the resilience and youth development module. There is a gender identity and sexual orientation based harassment module. There's about 15 different modules that districts can choose from. In addition to that, there's a custom module. The districts can make their own surveys with their own items, or they can use items on WestEd's extensive item bank. Okay, so that's the system to provide local data. And so the CHKS is targeted at providing local data for local use. But what's sort of part of that system is a state monitoring system. So the California Department of Healthcare Services, in collaboration with CDE, supports the administration of a statewide survey that's designed to be representative of the state as a whole. So that survey provides data for the state as a whole that can be generalized to the state as a whole and can be used by local districts to interpret their own results. So it's a system that fits together. One strength of the Cal School system is it's based on a strength-based framework, youth development and resilience framework. It assesses 3 important dimensions: caring, respectful, and relationships between staff and students, high expectations messages, and student voice and empowerment. I could go into some details. We can do it in the question session about the psychometric validity of the survey. I'll skip that. I am running out of time. Just do know that the survey is widely administered. The most recent 2-year period, about 1.4 million students completed the CHKS in 5,500 schools in 730 districts. So that is about 70% of the districts in California. About 35% of the districts that administer the survey administer it every year. So we've been collaborating with CDE and school districts to develop tools to sort of make the data accessible and actionable. One of those tools is a school climate reporting system that allows districts to see their strengths in terms of school climate, and as well as areas that may need more attention for improvement. We've also just recently put up a Cal Schools data dashboard that's on the website. That includes the most recent statewide data, plus data for all the districts in the state. And that data goes back for 4 years, so you can analyze trends across time, and you can analyze disparities across 11 different subgroups. And that's on the website, and that was just released about 3 weeks ago. So I think I'm out of time, but I imagine some of my other points will come up in questions, and I'll pass it over.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Dave.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks, Heather. Dave Calhoun with the core districts. That's capital C, capital O, capital R, capital E. I'm representing the core districts today. Just a very brief overview to begin. The core districts are a collaborative effort among 8 large California districts and over 30 additional collaborative districts in the state. Our work started officially in 2010, essentially a group of superintendents interested in system improvement and committed to a holistic and integrated approach to improving outcomes for kids. We've been through 3 different phases of our work over the past 8 years. Phase 1 was building our collaborative networks of district leaders with a special focus on the then new Common Core state standards. Phase 2 was about building a new accountability system as a driver for district work. The core districts had an NCLB waiver, and our work then featured building a data system and index reports to support schools' review of their successes and their challenges. And then with the advent of ESSA, we moved out of the NCLB waiver world and moved into a 3rd phase, more focused on school and district continuous improvement. So phase 1, building relationships and networking. Phase 2, building out a measurement system. And phase 3, implementing a framework and processes to support school improvement. So really powered by data, innovation, research, and continuous learning, we're collaborating to solve inequities in our educational system to give every student what they need to thrive. I just wanted to pause for a second on that, the last part of that statement, give every student what they need to thrive. What are those things? Well, for us, and really built into our measurement system, our core dashboard, is the kind of a broad, holistic, and integrated picture of what that might be. It includes, of course, academic knowledge and growth. It includes metrics, many of them administrative metrics, to help support and build a sense of responsibility and commitment as citizens. And then thirdly, and most importantly for our work here today, to focus on building a solid learning culture and essential social emotional skills. So our culture, SEL, critical areas are student growth mindset, and self-efficacy, social awareness, self-management. Those are some things you saw earlier from Taylor in her presentation on the work with the core districts. And we have some additional culture elements that are a part of what we measure. A sense of belonging in school, safety, knowledge of rules and norms, and a climate that supports academic learning. So kind of looking at this from the system level, we measured these through a survey, through the core annual student survey. It's a system level metric. It's been crucial in allowing school leaders and teachers to really be focusing on supporting the importance of the whole child. I think it's really important because as we measure it, we realize, and so do our teachers, and so do our school leaders, and so do our students even, recognizing that as we measure it and we put the metric up and make it available on our dashboard, it matters, so we measure it. So there's a myriad of additional ways that our schools and teachers support and measure SEL kind of at the classroom level, and Salomeh will talk a little bit about that. But I want to focus just for a couple more minutes on our annual system metric here, the annual survey that we do. I mentioned the 8 constructs that we are measuring right now. We've gone through a several year-long process of exploring what might be the appropriate metrics, the appropriate constructs to measure, then designing and developing them across about 2 years of piloting. And then both during the design phase and since full implementation, we've been working with our research partner, PACE, and Heather's been a big part of that, along with Taylor and several other folks that are in the room, to conduct numerous studies on validity and reliability. They've generally been structured around 4 questions. So question number 1, how well were the core survey measures designed? Secondly, how well do the core measures fit into the context of our school districts? With what level of fidelity are the data actually acquired? Question number 3. And then finally, are the ways that districts use the data from the surveys appropriate? And I could go into a lot more detail around the psychometrics, but like Tom, I think I'll skip that piece for our conversation today. Just to say that we're developing solid evidence in each of these areas. And if I were to just maybe briefly mention some of those essential ways or views that we've been looking at it from a research and research perspective, looking at things like content validity, looking at structural validity, item representativeness, how well do the items represent the constructs that we have, looking at things related to the results that we get back too. Are there floor and ceiling effects and the responses that we need to be looking at? Reference bias issues we're looking at, social desirability bias possibilities, and predictive validity. So all of these, as we're looking at our findings, we're mounting evidence about the essential and core validity of our instruments that we have. But I think probably our greatest endorsement for our systems-wide effort to measure SEL and school climate has been the recognition by many district and school leaders and teachers and even kids that having the survey and posting the results on our core dashboard lets everybody know that it's okay to talk about this. It matters, and it's important as a part of a holistic picture of our work for the whole child. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Salomeh.
Good afternoon. Good to see your faces. My name is Salomeh Ghorban. I get to be the community schools manager at Roosevelt Middle School. It's a public school in Oakland. Any folks from the town in the building? All right, much love. Yeah, so I get to share a little bit about what I know, where I sit, and what I've been thinking about. And so first off, I'm gonna kind of try to take you all on a journey, because talking about data after lunch is probably not the most interesting thing, but we're gonna try to make it interesting, because at the end of the day, data is fun, and hopefully I can convey that. So I work at Roosevelt Middle School. Roosevelt Middle School, about 97% of our students are part of our they make up the free and reduced school lunch program. We speak over 15 different languages at our school. I call us the UN of OUSD. It's pretty amazing. So what I also know is that student voice, parent voice, staff voice is powerful. Super powerful, right? And what I also know is that historically, our students, our families, our teachers and staff have not been able to be at the forefront of helping make those decisions. Their voice is not, folks are not going out to them, right? So you have someone that does amazing work and spearheaded the work, Yesenia, with the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project. Some people might think that, wow, that's like really, amazing and like really new. It's just reaching out to folks and meeting people where they're at, right? So I also know that, to create change, we have to give real opportunities for community members to be a part of creating that change. So it's up to us. And I can say, I'll speak for myself, it's up to me at my role to create the opportunities for those voices to be heard. I also know that we over-survey our students and families and communities. We over-survey them, it's all right. However, so let's do something about it, right? So if we're gonna over-survey them and just take a bunch and extract all this information and data and then not share it, what's the point, right? This stuff is really important, and it needs to be measured, and it's so great that it's accessible. So it's up to folks to then help students digest that information, help parents and families digest that information, help staff as well, create opportunities for that. So where I sit at a school site. My office is at Roosevelt Middle School, and I love it. And so that's really great. I get to interact with students, families, and staff every day. So I feel like I got a pulse on, or at least I try to have a pulse on what's going on. And so I sit on different leadership teams at school as well. And so what I've been thinking about, and why I've been asked to get the opportunity to speak to you all, which I'm very grateful for, is what I've been thinking about is, so what do you do with this data? How do we create this change? How do we be the change we wish to see in the world, right? Quote from Mahatma Gandhi, I did not say that. So back in 2008, I was working at the Roosevelt Health Center, and we were implementing the California Healthy Kids Survey. At that time, it wasn't online. It's a really lengthy survey. And so it was all written, and you had to bubble in and all these good things. It was great, useful information. However, we were getting the data. We did the survey in February. We would get the data at the end of the school year, and the school year was done. So how are we going to create that change? I'm so glad that it's, it's online, and now we get our results back in within a month. So that's pretty fantastic.
Faster.
And what's that?
No, go.
So why they asked me to come and talk to you all today is what I think about is, so then how do we create those shifts and changes when it's February or March and school's already started, right? So why don't we, I guess this is really innovative, but we have, and the work I do is not in isolation. I work with a team of incredible people. So we implemented a school student wellness survey, which is basically modeled after the California Healthy Kids Survey. It's about 10 questions on a Google form. We give that to students, and we do this with staff as well. Super simple, easy, quick, low lift. I'm happy to be at school. Questions like that. There's an adult that cares about me at school. Okay, so we do this Google form survey, and just 10 questions, super quick. And then we share that data with students and teachers. We share the data with students in advisory. And then we figure out ways to create changes. One way we did, students said that the second most unsafe place at school was the hallways. The first being the outside and surrounding neighborhood, of which I don't have control over. However, we do have control over what happens in our school building. So we did this really cool thing called Hack the Hallways, use student voice, and worked to implement or work to get student voice into the process and have them be a part of the solution to create our hallway safer. And we've also, there's this really great data point. Last year, we used our data for chronic absence, of which Brenda Say Chow, who's in the building, hey Brenda, I want to give a wave. She's with EBASI, and she led our chronic absence work. And last year, we had the lowest chronic absence rate of all 23 OUSD middle schools and high schools. And all of that was because we looked at data every week. So data can be super fun. It's something to just let you know how to improve. So you keep that improvement mindset, and you just make those shifts and you make them together.
Great. Thank you all so much. So we have some questions. Feel free to push others through here as we're asking some of the first. So the first question kind of follows on this idea of the improvement mindset. Several of the cards that we got really wanted to understand protocols for how you review data with diverse stakeholders, so parents, students, teachers, administrators, district staff. All of those people might have different skill levels in analyzing or reviewing data, might have different goals, might have limited trust. And so how do you build the structure, process, or protocol to engage in those conversations? And this is really a conversation for all, or a discussion for all panelists.
Well, I'll start. I guess, what we do, and sort of what we didn't get to is, having a psychometrically sound, robust data system is really important, but what's most important, and this is what Salomeh was talking about, was how we use the data and how we are inclusive in that data use. And it's sort of our paradigm, and I think most people's paradigm in this room is that it's a collaborative process that is sort of involves working together and being as inclusive as possible and developing sort of understanding of the data and action plans that result from them. What we tend to do, there's a whole bunch of different mechanisms we use, but we have these data appreciation workshops where we invite sort of staff, students, and parents to sort of go through the data and get people involved. And there's different levels of literacy, I guess I would call it. But the whole idea is sort of to delve deeply in the data, check our assumptions, look at the differences between staff's perceptions and student perceptions, and that usually brings people right in because the staff perceptions are usually much more positive than the students' perceptions. And then bring students and parents in to sort of action plan about sort of what next steps. And they could be sort of easy targets or more intensive targets about sort of and creating some SMART goals to sort of address sort of school climate improvement.
I can ask another question. So building off of that, Dave and Salomeh, you both talked about data as being something that prompts action. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about from where you sit, what that process looks like. So you see that you have a problem with chronic absenteeism. You see that a school might have a problem with social emotional learning. What is the way that you either advise or conduct a process that goes from that data point into a place where you're making real change?
Well, one of the things I'm aware of that we engage in with the core districts, the districts specifically have several different data review and planning protocols and sets of guidelines that are engaged in for school teams or even entire school staffs that really give people an opportunity to work their way through the data, understand and know and own that this data is reflective of what students are saying at their school, and that it's really important to move away from what one might call a culture of blaming and shaming, and really move toward a culture of saying, this is what seems to be the essence of what's true at our school right now. How can we work together to recognize our celebrations, and how can we work together to understand areas that are meaningful and important for us to take a look at? So moving into a continuous improvement framework allows everyone to have a chance to say, okay, regardless of what the data is, if this is an important thing for us to look at, what are some things that we can do to actually get better? How can we learn to get better at getting better using our social emotional learning data or our culture data as one of those threads of our work?
Thanks. Salomeh?
So, lots of things are coming to my mind, but I think what's important when working to sort of, you see this problem, try to conduct, advise a process, it's important to first acknowledge what the problem is, but then after that, who needs to be at the table, who this problem affects probably more than just one group of people, and who so need to get the folks at the table, and so you need to go to where they are at. Well, if it's like finding out teacher schedules, making an appointment during prep time, probably not a good idea to ask them passing in the hallway, hey, what do you think about this, or I want some feedback on back to school night, or things like that. So and so finding the right time, making sure people are at the table that need to be, and doing a lot of, I think I've learned a lot from the design thinking process, and that first step of a design thinking process being empathy, and really hearing then the voices at the table, so that again folks can be heard. And what I feel when we've tried to make some shifts at Roosevelt, it's when people have this opportunity to really be heard in an authentic manner, and then sort of letting the magic happen from there, which you alluded to before, is so I guess first and foremost is more empathy and creating space and time, and then with the intention of having the norm of an improvement mindset.
Thank you. One of the topics that came up earlier today was how important it is for teachers and educators in the building to think about social emotional learning, to internalize those ideas themselves. Mm-hmm. How do you all in your work think about monitoring that, the mindsets or approaches of adults in the building?
Sure. That's a tough one. Monitoring adult mindsets. You know, that's a. It's really right. I mean, that's what I'm understanding from the question.
So the idea being if we're measuring students' social emotional competencies,
Right.
should we be measuring teachers' social emotional competencies? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we can't ask our students to do anything that we won't do ourselves. And I'll repeat that. We can't ask our students to do any work or anything that we won't ask of ourselves. So I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add that visibility is really important. So this whole notion of these things matter, and it's important for us to measure them. If we're looking at measuring them for our kids, I think just having the visibility there is really an important opportunity for people to be self-reflecting on those, basic social emotional skills for themselves too. So it's not something that we necessarily mandate at the district level, but it really does open up a conversation opportunity to be thinking through, well, what is my sense of my own growth mindset in this area, or my sense of my own self-efficacy, or how aware am I of others in the room right now as we're wrestling with this? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And final question, and I'd like for each of you to address this. We came into this panel with the assumption that measurement is important, and you all do that, but there are certainly critical voices in California, in our field, that say we're over-measuring. Why do we need to measure these things at all? Can't we just attend to these things without measuring them? And what would you say to that?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
I don't know. We invest so much in assessing academic test scores. I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars. And we have an accountability. We have a system, the LCAP system, that has, priorities of school assessing school climate. What is it about parent involvement? Sort of the and student engagement, but we have not made nearly the equivalent investments in sort of measuring those aspects. We do have a state system; it's a voluntary system, and there's pretty intensive participation. But it only seems natural to invest in measuring those other domains that we deem important, and to invest in that.
I can go. Okay. I think that, how are you ever going to know if anything's going to be is working at all without some sort of measurement tool? There has to be something. Arbitrary sort of data or sort of narratives, or I heard this or I saw this. Like, we have to be able to share growth and goals, and we have to have some sort of common understanding of where we're going and what we're headed towards, and measuring data will help us know if we're doing good, great, or need to improve. It sets that sort of base level guideline to take action on, so I think it's important.
Thank you. And Dave, you get the final word on this.
Final word for Dave. All right, thank you. I think I would go to the iceberg analogy, recognizing that an iceberg has some piece of it that's above water and huge parts of it that are underwater. And our systems are complex systems. Classrooms are, districts are, our systems are very complex. And measurement is really a way of bringing something to the surface and to have a chance to take a look and pay some attention to it, and to be moving in this area of social emotional learning and school culture and climate, and saying that this is important to measure. What we're doing really is we're saying, let's take a piece of our system that could otherwise be just something we're not aware of, and bring it to the surface, bring it to attention, so that we can have a better sense of what this system is, and less that's under the surface, more that's out for us to share and learn from.
Thank you. Can I have a round of applause for our measurement panel?